big steps, leverage those ancillary staff big time. Make sure that you're using them. Make sure that the clicks that the therapist are making to set the patient up makes sense. It's something that the therapist is providing of value, so the therapist buy in for the value that they're providing their patient. And then anybody that has a full-time schedule that's not listed as the RTM monitor, their only job after that point is just talking points with the patient.
Well, hey, Matt, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. I know you were on a while back to talk about RTM, but before we dive into kind of more into the weeds, just give us a high-level review, like who you are, how you got involved in RTM, and kind of what you're doing now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the story hasn't changed since the first time we met. So that history still exists of back in 2022, searching for ways to support our lifestyle as a growing family that wanted to be more free. So my wife and I are both physical therapists, and we kind of jumped on a wild hair and started doing contract gigs so we could travel full-time and homeschool our kids while we did it. Been a cool, evolving lifestyle. So in 22, I was doing a contract with my prior employer, and he said, "Hey, Matt, I want to support you. What you're doing is cool. Have you heard about RTM? I don't have the bandwidth to figure it out." And so I jumped on that and I dug in, figured out what it could be, realized quickly that it's a software, yes, but it's a lot of people work like the profession is itself, the nature of the profession, all the way from how your patients are contacted by your front desk to how your therapist builds rapport with your patient in clinic. And nothing changes in the success when you talk about RTM. So going through the trial and error process, all the way to how do you navigate billing these codes as they exist, I was able to kind of position myself in a place where I could help other software companies out to figure it out in their creation, all the way to their onboarding of their clients, because they didn't have that clinic talk that I could do. So that's what I've been doing the last 2.5 years. It's been great. And in the meantime, in the present component of things, viewing RTM as a program addition, I think, has been lacking in just the space globally. It's really attractive to say, hey, can I recoup some of this revenue that I'm losing from decreased reimbursements? Well, let me just plug in this program and hit go. So a lot of folks out there are trying it with that perspective, and I feel the lack in understanding that it's program-based, value-based for your patients, and when the patients perceive that value, then participation and outcomes improve. So that program building management component is lacking, and I wanted to produce something that empowered the therapist to take control of that role and kind of own it for their own clinic and possibly expand however big their business mind is and their goals are. Can they make it their own component? So I went ahead and wrote a course about that and how to do that. And, thinking about when I was creating the course too, it's almost like involving a specialty clinic. If you were going to say, hey, we have a TMJ niche that we fill in our clinic. Well, you're going to have to pay somebody to learn something about TMJ, and that somebody's going to have to manage it, own it, market it, all this stuff to make it successful. It is a program in a way that you're adding to your services. Just more people than a select niche can take advantage of it, and that's how you kind of capture these new codes that people are still fumbling around on. So, yeah.
So, there's a lot of places we can go there, but I guess the biggest one is I like this idea of looking at it as a program that you're implementing versus not like an upsell or an upcoding that you're just doing, right? So, I guess from a standpoint of strategically for maybe like a clinic or something like that, you're talking, are you recommending like having a dedicated person that like you own RTM for our clinic, or like is there a split? What are you seeing that's working or not working, or when it comes to like creating a program of RTM?
It's kind of been what I've helped to draw a picture of,
Okay.
and a lot of different companies are kind of going this route too. In its infancy, it was, hey, look, it's something that a therapist do anyhow.
Yeah.
You already send an HEP, you already send education, you do this stuff. Let's move it to a platform, capture that data that's sent back, bill it appropriately. And if you happen to take a call during your busy lunch hour, get credit for it, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then you'll make all this extra money. So unfortunately, that's the perspective that still exists to some degree. I think a few people caught on and said, well, I'll do all that busy work for you. We'll just split it. So, you're a company in Colorado that's got hired a service in Florida that's taking care of this.
Yeah.
That exists, and it can be successful. My true PT spirit has a little bit of difficulty with that.
Yeah.
My sweet Betty Lou that's I'm working with in the clinic, getting calls from somebody that doesn't know her or really is like a part of the team. So that oddity creates a barrier, I do believe. So what I see is, if you've got a team of therapists and there's a desire by a therapist to own a program or work a little bit more remotely or do something like that, or you can see that they're a motivated person as an owner. Jimbo can do more than 40 hours in the clinic. He wants a side hustle. I'm going to attack him. He's my bulldog. I'm going to attack him on this program.
Yeah.
So then he kind of owns it and takes care of all the nuances, because it is a new habit to be built by your staff. All the way from leveraging who you've got, front desk, aides, techs, to assist the clients, take some weight off the in-clinic PTs, to training a new habit in a PT, which is hard. My joke from day one is like, don't change the clock from one wall to the other.
Yeah.
You're going to hear it for the next 6 months. So this is a new habit for them to build. So somebody overseeing that takes that plate, that off the plate of the management. To the communication aspect and the monitoring aspect, the making a program that's robust enough that your patients are going to buy in and use it.
Yeah.
And then the timely billing component too, because it's such a fine tune ebb and flow of hitting the timing that CMS wants and the submittal of these codes and stuff, that if you leave that up to therapists or try to batch bill, it gets a little messy. So having one person kind of do those roles in their RTM time, you can look at it that way. They've got 3 hours of RTM time built into their schedule, or they want to do extra, so they do remote, or you've got a mom that's nervous about coming back full time from maternity leave. Well, she'd be a great candidate to run this from home. And then you hire another therapist, so you're not losing clinic time, appointment time in the clinic. So that's kind of from leadership, how it can be done. And then I'm all about empowering that therapist to take the lead. Meet your goals. There's options out there, and this is a good one. It can be lucrative if you do it right.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that, the keeping it part of a team, especially for like smaller clinics, like people get to know, Rafi or Matt, and they see him around the clinic, and when you're especially doing something new with a patient, it's nicer to be able to say like, oh, Rafi will be checking in on you. You've already seen him in the clinic. He does this for all our patients or something like that. Like there's just some of that relationship already built in, which is nice. But so okay, we've got the program, this idea of a program, and we've kind of outlined like maybe some different ways to look at it. What about like maybe a clinician who's listening that wants to do this but is kind of unsure, like is my clinic going to buy into this? Like how can I pitch this, for lack of a better word, to management or to the owner? Because when I talk with people all the time about it, you probably get this too, like a lot of clinic owners are like, no, it's something new. I don't need to mess with that right now. Like my bandwidth is already spread too thin. So I guess what are some strategies or some ways to think about it as a clinician wanting to build out a program like this as far as communicating it to management and stakeholders?
That's you hit the nail on the head with the unique situation that I found myself in, going back to the history in 22. Yeah. That's what I wanted, found that something existed, but nobody had done the work from how this looks, right? So I kind of did all that hard work. And then have met individuals, just as you described, that do part-time this, want to bolster that, have goals for their career to go elsewhere. How can they run something, propose it, and find out the nuances and do them well, that they could either grow it or be happy with the way it is.
Yeah.
And so a couple specific individuals that I've met fairly recently served as an inspiration for me to just do a course, just put a course out there and offer it as a guideline that takes that figure it out stuff, the kind of the pre-work that is required to figure out what is necessary, and just lay it out in a 5-class course. So I've done that, produced it. I want to stay personal. So if anybody's looking for that option on more material on it, from day one, it comes a personal contact that's received by me, and then I want to be a part of that journey because it makes me happy and fulfilled in what I've created to know that it's being successful for the individual. So, it's kind of almost an email basis. Let's get to know each other and see if this is going to work scenario. So that course that I produced is to empower that inquisitive, motivated staff therapist to all the way from how do I approach leadership and lay it out. I've got even a proposal template that they can just stick their name in, basically. Run through the numbers with leadership, and then it comes with PowerPoints to train the staff. How do I track and train my staff because the habits need to be built? What's my own individual workflow look like so that I can track patients and bill on them appropriately and communicate with them well? How do I build a program that's going to be fruitful for the patient too? Because that's where a big gap exists and fall off occurs when it's RTM. A patient's only going to do something. Yes, they have to be told, but they're only going to do it for so long.
Yeah.
And trust the individual that's providing this good resource for them. So that's what the course entails. I can be available to consult with leadership as well. The points and the themes remain consistent for the clinic owner as well, though. Yes, it's viewed in the light of that motivated therapist to take the lead on it, which I think is a good thing. Ownership, if they see that as a possibility for an inclusion of RTM for their clinic space, then they can follow that model as well and say, hey, Rafi, look, take this course. It's good. It's going to lay out what you need to do. They can view it from that way. I am planning on doing a second course for leadership, speaking to leadership, but nothing's going to change in the flow of the
concepts are the same. It's just a matter of
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned something, so I'm thinking like the potential problems, right, or like hang-ups with RTM. Like you mentioned, one of the big ones is billing. Like no one really understands billing and timing. How is that a challenge specifically for PT and OT practices? Is it a matter of like, okay, if you don't bill, I know there's something like in the 30 days, it starts when you bill this code, right? Like what are some of the nuances there that people need to be aware of?
It's, as it stands now, really based on timing of the submitting of the codes.
Okay.
So, for example, there's, the class 1 that I provide is a way for people to kind of gain their trust with me. So I offer that as free. Hey, let me gain your trust. And it's a lot of what is therapy per the current ruling, what is RTM per the current ruling, lays out the codes and stuff. So, but without getting into the nitty gritty, one of the codes is 98977. And that is, you have to have 16 days of data transmitted to you by whatever platform you're using of the patient out of 30. Okay, so when do I bill that? Can I bill that earlier than 30 days? What am I looking at? And what Medicare sees, as long as it's part of the plan of care, RTM, that first code, every 30 days you can bill that code. It's a valuable code being reimbursed at, you look at Medicare with a secondary, $50 per time that you bill this code. So every 30 days I can bill this code on this patient. Well, if you bill that code and they start in the middle of January, if you bill that anything short of 30 days, submit it anything short of 30 days, you will likely get denied on that second 7/7. So it's a tracking of when these codes were submitted. And then you compound that, that enough is
complicated.
Deserves something to track. You compound that with the communication codes as they're being termed. It's 8081 and 8980. Those are on calendar months. So when do you bill those? Is it best to bill those at the end of a calendar month, beginning of the calendar month? Should I bill them with the 7/7s? So you need to track those and make sure that you're not overlapping the submittal of those codes within a calendar month.
Yeah.
So, that alone is like, whoa, okay, I need somebody
parts.
watching this, because I can't just stick it on my therapist's plate just to do it when a light turns green, because the systems, it's also a result of it occurred. EMRs were built on the old CPT codes, the time codes.
Yeah. You hit your threshold, you can bill it. Yeah.
You can bill it, kind of thing, right? And so when RTM gets integrated into that, the EMRs are requiring you to submit it through the EMR, but they are not tracking the timing of submittal. They're only tracking, if the EMR is tracking anything, it's tracking the completion of the CPT code to be able to be billed, but it's not tracking the submittal timing. So there's an overlap where there are a fair amount.
So it'll tell you,
987
or 98980 is good to go, but it doesn't know, or it doesn't even track whether or not you billed it 15 days ago or 31 days ago.
Right. That's up to the therapist, which should be. It should be the therapist's knowledge of what the heck they're billing to submit that code. To say, I did the work, I'm submitting this code, here's my documented proof of it. But the timing in a therapist's busy month will hardly ever coincide with that perfect 30 days kind of thing. There are tactics where you can kind of batch bill for the clinic, but then you're overlapping with discharges, and it gets kind of messy. So you almost have to track per patient of what's happening to really minimize your denial rate on those codes.
Yeah, and I guess a big piece of this then too is like the platform or the software that you're using to implement RTM. So just high level, like what should people be looking for? Like, I want to do RTM, got the proposal in place, or I have an idea. The next step is like, okay, what platform am I using? And kind of what are the big points to look out for, big features maybe to avoid or to look for when selecting a platform?
Yeah, absolutely. Go into it with the mindset of, it needs to start with the platform of what the therapists need to learn to give their patients. So if it's something new, it has to be really simple for the clinic therapist to turn on, because they are the decision makers at the time of eval. They're going to put it in their plan of care that RTM is going to be a part. They are the ones that are going to click and submit and provide this platform access to their patient, right? So one of the easier flows is to think, okay, if I have an HEP component that my therapists are used to using, I'm just going to send that along, because that's something that therapists do as a part of their care already. With that comes issues. So that is one tactic of platform usage that's out there. Another one is, okay, if I can turn it on and just have this system message provide the value component, the extras on my behalf, and the patient engages, then that's another way to think too. So starting off with what's going to fit your culture the best, and what do you already have at your disposal that you might be able to not have to produce new habits just to use the software kind of thing. Because there are habits around the provision and encouragement of use for your patients that your therapists and front desk are going to have to do. Then the next step would be, what are the extras that can be automated within it? I'm kind of big on, and you've heard me say it a couple times just in our 20 minutes here, the patient that perceives it as valuable is going to be the one who engages the most and produces the most of these codes, right?
Yeah.
Just like your care, a patient walks through the door, if they see what you're providing as valuable, they're going to return for the next session. They're going to return for the next session, right? So nothing changes, and it fits in line with the PT credo. Let's not just give our patient busy work. Let's produce something that's going to fulfill a need for the patient and benefit their care. So if that platform provides a way to either automate it, has it existing in there, takes care of some of that busy work of communication, and engages the patient so that overseeing, monitoring PT can then engage back and produce these communication codes, that's going to be a very valuable add. And then does it integrate somehow into your EMR, or are there plans for future deeper integrations of EMR? Because that's a messy thing where the EMRs are separate from the billing, is separate from the RTM platform. So now you're trying to get all three of these to communicate in a way that's still trying to get figured out. In the end, it needs to be a fusion of the EMR is kind of driving the RTM, and then the platform sitting in the background that's gathering the data. Like that's the optimal, but we're yet to get there. So, ask those questions of your platform during your platform demos of what EMRs are you integrated, and how deep are you trying to get with them, and try to sort that out so that that eventually what you're using is going to become more one, in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a big one. I don't think people really take that into consideration when they're implementing anything new. Like, just sometimes opening up another tab and logging in again is enough for a clinician to be like, yeah, not doing it.
Not doing it, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's that easy.
Because they're managing all kinds of stuff, multiple patients, they're doing their own workflow. And so I guess from a clinician adoption standpoint or something like that, like, what is best practice for integrating RTM into a workflow where it doesn't seem like this extra burden on the clinician? Because maybe you do have the PT that's managing the program, but there's still going to be some involvement from the boots on the ground or the face-to-face clinician, right?
High level. So in the course, I go into real specifics, and even to the point of homework for your staff to kind of figure this out. But leverage your front desk and your aides to assist the patient and kind of set the table for the patient. Yeah. Even before the eval, this is an expectation. This is something that your clinic provides. Turn that light on for the patient before the patient even meets their therapist, that this is part of what you offer and why. So going through those steps first really relieves the sales pressure from the PT.
Yeah.
It's just expected, okay, at the end of your eval, you're going to be doing these things and this because it helps. Where am I sending this to? And then it just gets done. So it's a confirmation of their contact points to where you can deliver the platform. We're speaking a lot from outpatient perspective. It's different from assisted livings and skilled nursing facilities. Those are better suited if there's a device that's going to capture mobility efforts. And there's some really good products out there that I'm happy to speak with you more on too if you're in that family. It becomes a little bit more automated, the data components.
Yeah, because if they're using it, you're getting the data, it's getting sent. Yeah.
And that's being tried in the outpatient world with, step counters and Apple Watch kind of communicating within platforms. So back to your question though, big steps, leverage those ancillary staff big time. Make sure that you're using them. Make sure that the clicks that the therapist are making to set the patient up makes sense. It's something that the therapist is providing of value, so the therapist buy in for the value that they're providing their patient. And then anybody that has a full-time schedule that's not listed as the RTM monitor, their only job after that point is just talking points with the patient. So just kind of a presence of mind, take all the other responsibilities off, because those get lost in the shuffle of a busy therapist. Give all the other duties of monitoring, tracking, communicating, billing to your RTM
person. Yeah.
Guy or gal. Mm-hmm.
Cool deal. Yeah, no, I think those are great tips. We're getting here near the bottom. Is there anything that we've missed that you want to like pinpoint when it comes to, maybe a listener that wants to implement RTM? Like what haven't we talked about that they should put on their radar?
I would just say, back to the goals, kind of stepping back and what are your career goals? Are you happy with what you're doing? Are there ways that you can assist your clinic family, at the same time support your own at-home family and goals? This could be a very viable option for you. More so than just taking calls and stuff. If you really dig in, set the table right, have your points met with your staff, you could turn this into a nice side hustle, even all the way up to making your own RTM program for your state. You wouldn't even have to do things if you've got enough connections. And then from the owner's perspective is, this is a way to assist your staff. The happy staff is going to produce more, right? And current scenarios as an owner, we don't have more to give of what they want. They want more time and money, right?
Yeah.
So how do I get some of that? So implementing an RTM thing, if done right, could support the goals of one individual, but the love could be spread amongst everybody. So knowing your staff is key, and seeing their goals and identifying those roles, and supporting the system. That's kind of the ownership perspective of RTM to meet those financial goals, to help those productivity standpoints of your therapist, with allocating the duties to one person versus piling more on the plates of everybody.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool deal. Well, Matt, where can people, one, connect with you, learn more about your work, and then where can they find the course?
Yeah. So the way I'm starting things out, again, personal is one way to say it. Overhead is another way to say it for me too. So I have a landing page that you can find in Rafi's notes. But reach out to me through LinkedIn. Like, I like to hear the needs so I know how to meet you first, because it is becoming a more vast space. So to know where you are in the game. I tried RTM, it failed in our clinic, but I'm a staff PT that wants to try again. How do I attack that? To whoever in between can reach out and let me know a little bit of your story. So look me up on LinkedIn would be a great way to find me. Just search my name. The business that I operate under, my business is called Osprey RTM Solutions and Consulting, right? So Osprey RTM will get you there. That'll even get you there in a Google search, but my landing page will be in the
we'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I'm starting out, to see how this rolls and the interest. And so really the links for the courses and the free course that I offer up front to get to know me and know the what is RTM, comes from an email request. So there's buttons that are going to open up your email, and you have to type, I'm sorry, but you got to type me a message and say, hey, Matt, I'm interested, man. I found you here. So that's the way I'm going to start with, and I'd be really happy to talk a couple things over with anybody that's listening.
Cool deal. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, Matt, thanks so much for being on the show. Have a good one.
Thank you, Rafi.